So, the Z06. Been talking about how I'm going to get a Z06 for 2.5 years now. I started my Z06 journey, I guess, if you want to call it that, back in 2020 after I realized that the hype for this C8 was really what it became. The values were going to hold. It's going to be hard to get one. In 2020, I also put in an order to buy a C8, which then came in July 2021. But at the time I was originally putting in my reservation for the C8, the real reason why I was contacting these dealers was to get an early spot on the line for a Z06. That's really what I knew that was the next Corvette I really wanted. It's not that I didn't want the Stingray, but that just wasn't really the reason why I was contacting the dealers. In the process of contacting the dealers, a few local dealers said, hey, let me put you on the list for the Stingray, because of course they want to sell cars, so I did. And now, thankfully, I'm glad that I did, because I got a 2021, and then 7 months later, I ended up getting a chance to buy a 2022, and that's where we are today. So now I have my 2022 sitting in the garage, but still, 2.5 years later, I've gone through waiting over a year for the first one, buying a second one, and now I've had that one for 6 months, and still no Z06 in sight. So let me backtrack a little bit, and if you go to some of my older videos where I've talked about getting the Z06, I've talked about that I've got early spots on the line here with some local dealers. And one of which very specifically is a pretty decent sized, kind of a mid-sized local dealer. So, if you're on the other side of the country, you've never heard of them. If you're local to the area, you probably likely have heard of them, but they're not the largest place in town. They probably get, I'm completely guessing here, but they probably sell somewhere between 20 to 40 Corvettes a year, something like that. So they're not up on the top list, but they do an okay volume. And so ideally, if they sell 20 to 40 Corvettes a year, they're probably going to get, anywhere between 5 to 10 Z06 a year. I figure now that I have become the first person on their list, there's a decent chance that maybe the first or second month they might get an allocation, and that was my hope. So of course, now if you haven't been living under a rock for the past few weeks, and you're in the Corvette world, you know that they finally released some allocations for the Z06. Everybody is super pumped. They did so back in mid-August, and they released like 186 one day and then another 100 or so the next day or two. Anyway, I think it was something like 291 allocations totally got released in the monthly allocation cycle of August. My dealer didn't get one. Now, although that's disappointing, it wasn't surprising, right? Like, I think that they're not one of the largest places in town. They're definitely not one of the largest dealers that you're going to know of and order from across the country. Like some of these dealers that get hundreds and even thousands of Corvettes a year, they're not one of those, clearly. And that was part of my strategy. So if you go back in 2020, I contacted the second largest and the third largest Corvette dealers in the country. The second largest Corvette dealer, I could have been like number 120 on their list, which more or less mathematically would have guaranteed me at least a first year car, but it may have been many months into that first year. The other dealer was, I believe, a little over 100. They get much less cars. Same deal, might have been like a late first year car. I decided to not go that route, even though it was maybe a more secure, seamless path, for two reasons. First of all, I would have had to put down a deposit. At that time, I think $2,000 or $3,000 is what those dealers were requiring. Remember, this is in early to mid 2020, and it's now September 2022, and we have no idea when this car is coming. So I didn't really want to put a big deposit down back then, not knowing when and if this car would ever exist. So my strategy shifted, first of all, and then also not be first on their list, so I wouldn't get the first shot at their allocations. So then I shifted my strategy to more local dealers. So I did a 50-mile or so radius around where I live in Central Texas, from the whole San Antonio area, the whole Austin area, the whole kind of hill country area around everything. And I just contacted every dealer. I mean, dealers that do 100 Corvettes a year, dealers that do one Corvette every 2 years. And I just contacted every single one of them to try to get on their list. And it worked. I had tons of dealers that got back to me and said, we can do this, we can do that. I do have one relatively large size dealer in Austin that offered me the first spot in line. They wanted a $5,000 deposit, and they were going to charge me $15,000 over sticker price. Now, in hindsight, it wasn't a bad deal. At the time, though, I was completely 1,000% against I will never pay over sticker price, so I didn't want to commit to that. And I also didn't, of course, want to give them a $5,000 deposit at that time. So I told them thanks, but no thanks, and of course found a dealer that would give me their first spot in line. And then last week, just before the new month of allocations were supposed to come out, and just after everyone came off the high of Corvettes of Carlisle, where they had dozens of Z06s there, they dropped the bomb in a dealer monthly update that they will no longer be accepting any new allocations for the Z06 this calendar year. Now, you have unfortunately maybe seen articles out there on the internet of them saying that they have canceled the Z06, that they will not build any more 2023 Z06s. I mean, all kinds of very irresponsible, dangerous things have been published online, and some from relatively reputable publications online, which is quite unfortunate. But that's not the case. The deal is that they basically halted allocations at what now the total is apparently around 450, and they won't accept any more allocations until the end of this calendar year. That's what they say. That means maybe in January, we might get a new round of allocations. Nothing's guaranteed at this time. Also, they're not halting production. A lot of people think they're halting production. They're going to quickly produce these 400 cars and then halt production for 4 months. That's not true either. They are going to, in some fashion, space out the manufacturing of these 450 cars that they have granted allocations for, and then they're going to release more next year. I personally believe there's a decent chance out there that come November, December, they might get caught up on that 450, because it really won't take them, if they have the parts, it really won't take them that long to build the 450 cars. They could probably build those 450 cars in about a month, as long as they have the parts. So if they start building in the middle of September, they might finish middle to end of October, and then we might hear from them in November and say, hey, maybe we'll release 100 allocations in November, maybe 100 in December, and kind of slowly ramp up at the end of this year, rather than waiting till the beginning of next year. But that's not guaranteed at all. That's just my hope, I guess, because I'm hoping that the next round of allocations that come through, my dealership will get one. I'll be first on that list, and everything will be great. That's what's happening with the Z06 right now. That's what's happening with my Z06. There are a lot of people out there saying that only the Z06s are being given to these influencers. We're hearing about people like Amelia Hartford, Stradman, TJ Hunt, Speed Phenom, all getting one, but maybe other people like Street Speed is not getting one. And that's because they're only giving it to all of these, VIPs, and that's completely not true. Yes, those people are getting one, but all 400 are not going to these influencers and YouTubers. It's very silly. I personally know 2 people here locally that were first on their dealer list that got allocations, have their orders in, they're already in 3,000 status. They will likely get built maybe in October sometime, and hopefully get delivered somewhere between end of October to end of November, something like that. So it is not just that all of these cars that got allocated are going to people that paid extra, or GM employees, dealership employees, or YouTubers. That is not the case. There might be 10 YouTubers in the whole world that are getting special treatment from GM. The other 440 of these 450 allocations for this year are going to just normal folks probably. And I think that's good. So anyway, I just wanted to get on camera here and give a quick update. I also have not completely spec'd out my car and done that here because I haven't gotten the allocation. I'm still not sure what I want. I believe I know what I want. I have configured a few different options. I believe I know exactly what I want, but I don't want to commit to anything and go through the process of making a video that says, oh, I'm gonna get this color and these options and all that. If now I have to wait until, I don't know, January or February before I even get to put my order in. So right now, that's kind of playing the waiting game. My plan is to just keep the Stingray, keep driving it, make some content with it here until I finally get that call. Best case scenario, I think I'm thinking probably I'll get that call in January. Then it'll be a 3-month timeline before it gets delivered. So that might be April, which means it'll be a full year now that since I got this 2022. The other option, I've only considered this in the past week, but I may see if one of these dealers that I'm on their list for, they can substitute me and just order me a 2023 Stingray. Just continue to bounce up that line a little bit and maybe get some different options. Possibly get an anniversary edition, although those are on constraint too, so you might not be able to order one until later this year anyway. So just something I'm thinking about, and if that's the case, that could potentially get built and delivered before the end of this year if I have to wait another 6, 7, 8, 9 months before the 2023 Z06 happens. So that's where I'm at. I wanted to give you guys an update because I've been talking about this Z06 for 2+ years now. And I'm very disappointed in the way this initial rollout has happened. I was believing that since I got such an early spot in line with a decent dealer that gets some allocations, I would actually have a really good chance at getting a very early car. And it's still gonna be early in the grand scheme, but I'm not gonna get one that first month like so many other people have. And yes, normal folks have, such as the 2 people here locally that I know. Now, the good news is I'm hoping that one or maybe both of them will allow me to come to their delivery. And I know that seems a little strange. I know that's a big deal with like the Ford GTs, where they get all the Ford GT guys locally to come to their deliveries. You don't want to hear too much about the Corvettes, but here we are in a situation where they're only going to build, 400 of these cars in the next 4 to 6 months. And if I happen to be able to go to a delivery of someone that, they're one of the first ones built in the whole world, gets delivered here locally to a friend of mine, I would love to go down there and check it out, make a video of it and show you guys. Anyway, that's all I got, guys. Please hit subscribe because when the Z06 finally does come, we're gonna make some really awesome content, or just when my friend's Z06 comes, hopefully within the next 2 months, I'll be able to make a video there describing how that went. And in the meantime, though, we've got a lot of other content we can make with, of course, the Stingray, with the Ford GTs, with other cars and things like that. So that's where I'm at. Please tell me what you guys think in the comments below about what's going on with C8 Z06. Just empty all your feelings into the comments, the good, the bad. I love to have discussions about it. I'm not going to sit here and beat up on GM. They have a very hard task ahead of them to launch this car. But I do wish it would go much smoother than it is. So anyway, guys, until next time, adios.